Mono Sanbonani, hello, how's it? Good morning, good morning, good morning. Welcome to this, the Monday edition of Vuka Nazo, your morning news analysis show. My name is Sihle Ngobese, aka Big Daddy Liberty. Remember, if you're watching this show right now, do me a favor, hit that like button, whether you're watching this simulcast on Facebook or on YouTube. And you can even do me an even bigger favor by sharing the stream. That's right, share it so that more of your friends can watch Vuka Nazo and get their morning headlines here with me. Now, with that being said, we also have a website. Visit us there, please, and you can pledge some financial support to the work that we do. Anything between 50 to 100 Rand a month. The average that we do is about 75 Rand per month. Please continue supporting the show. And if you aren't, hey, consider becoming a financial contributor. Now, with that being said, how about we get straight into the news? Now, last week, Friday, you remember we had that conversation about the taxi operators in the Cape who basically are trying to extort the Western Cape government to get their way. And what are they doing, of course, as part of extorting the Western Cape government? Well, they're resorting to violence, intimidation, and thuggery on the population, the rest of the population of Cape Town, indeed even targeting school kids in that particular instance. Now, if that behavior is repugnant, let me take you now to Johannesburg, or rather, correction, to Pretoria, Tshwane in particular, where now you'll know the politics of that particular municipality are rather messy, with the mayor of Tshwane, that's a one Randall Williams, recently having tendered his resignation letter, initially saying it is an effective immediate letter, and then later saying no, actually it's effective on the 28th of February. Now, it's that little change in his resignation letter that saw the EFF, yes, that's right, Tshwane's version of Cape Taxi thugs, effectively descend on the offices of the mayor and indeed the mayoral committee, disrupt the work there, intimidate and threaten the workers there, claiming they're not legitimate and shouldn't be there. Watch this.
So what makes you so special? What makes you so special? Why you push us away? What's making you so special? This is not a free forum. This is not a free forum here. This is the city of Tshwane. Yes.
Now, as you can imagine, the EFF effectively doing what the EFF does best. Remember, this is a hardcore communist party, and communists, as I've told you before on the show, historically do exactly what you saw in that image. They resort to violence, intimidation, and indeed thuggery to get their way. And why do they do that? Because by and large, they recognize that their ideas aren't as popular as they think they are, hence they have to resort to violence. So we're seeing that play out, as I said, in the offices of the mayor's office over a really insignificant issue. But again, when you're attention whores like the EFF, you've got to do things like this to get attention. But nonetheless, let me read this News 24 piece that wrote up the story as follows. Now, the EFF was vocal that the party would only accept the 13 February resignation on Williams's date. The party insisted that it was illegal to amend resignation dates. Now, Tshwane's speaker, Ewan Murunwa Makwerela, was asked to seek legal advice on the two letters, and he indicated a special council sitting would be held last week, Wednesday, which would shed light on the matter. Makwerela later cancelled the sitting, but said legal advice had been sought and that Williams, the then mayor, had acted legally in amending his resignation letter. The EFF was angered by this news of the cancelled sitting. End of quote. And that's exactly the anger you saw there, performative as it was, but the anger you saw right there. Notice though in the video how they play up the race issue quite significantly, pointing out the one EFF goon that, oh, this is not AfriForum, he says. This is Tshwane, whatever the fudge that is meant to be. But it's essentially, I'll leave it at this. If you need more evidence that the EFF are simply not fit to govern, then I don't know what your problem is. There's nothing perhaps that I can say to convince you. And I know what's going to happen in the comment section. There'll be a litany of the EFF acolytes, the horde, as I like to call them, commenting and calling me all sorts of names for daring to criticize their beloved EFF. To me, politicians don't do anything to solve our real everyday issues as the faith, flag, family, and freedom type South Africans. You and I are struggling at the moment, are barely making ends meet. Yet for these politicians, it's all fun and games, it's all theatrics, it's all performative outrage in whatever capacity, whether it's in parliament, it's in the Tshwane offices, wherever. This is exactly why, because I don't look to politicians, I always tell you that politicians are trash. All right, I take you to Roodepoort now, which is also in Gauteng. Now, here's the thing. We've had a conversation on the Big Daddy Liberty show around ZamaZamas. That's the illegal miners in this country who have basically muscled in on abandoned mines and even are now threatening existing mines. Yes, that's right. The Fortune 500 mining companies are facing a violent armed army of illegal miners who hail mostly from Lesotho and other foreign nations. We had this detailed conversation where I sat with the 3 investigative journalists from the Times Group who had basically done a deep dive on the issue of the illegal miners, their culture, who they are, their operations, and indeed the billions of rands that they're racking up. So remember, there's the thumbnail right there. Please do yourself a favor and watch that show so you can be up to speed on as to who these individuals are. And I did mention at the time that ZamaZamas are one of the biggest security threats to the country. They not only match the police pound for pound in terms of what they're armed with, but they could likely become a mercenary group in this country. And indeed, we're seeing now how their activities are disrupting everyday life for South Africans. This is why I take you to Roodepoort, where there is a threat of the electricity infrastructure in that part of South Africa completely collapsing. And why? Because the very ground beneath it has been hollowed out by the illegal mining activity, and indeed some substations are at risk of imploding or collapsing in on themselves is actually the expression I'm looking for. Let me read this EWN piece which wrote the story up and indeed conveyed the frustration of the residents of the area, some of whom have been without power for days on end and even weeks. Now, residents were protesting in recent weeks after being left in the dark on multiple occasions, accusing City Power of not helping them. The utility itself, along with the MMC for infrastructure, A1 Jack Sekwalia, visited the Roodepoort area last week on Thursday. Now, some residents in the area said they were fed up with being deserted by City Power for weeks on end, end of quote. Now, again, we're watching here the collapse of South African infrastructure that was effectively built up over decades in this country, which saw South Africa being effectively one of the most developed countries in the world, definitely the most developed on the African continent. But now here we are literally watching criminality, and not only criminality, but also the political corruption that comes with it, destroying that very infrastructure. I warned then and I warn again, if nothing serious is done about the ZamaZamas, and I don't mean the flash in the pan PR stunts that a certain loser and asshat of a police minister does. No, I'm not talking about PR stuff. I'm talking about real police work that cracks down on these syndicates and not only sees them behind bars, but also the vast majority of them deported out of this country, the law-breaking thugs that they are. Then the situation will continue to deteriorate to the point of actual collapse. So Roodepoort is going to be a strong indication of where this fight against the ZamaZamas will end up. All right, that's it from us here at Vuka Nazo this morning. This is the Monday edition of the show. Good morning. Now remember, if you like how we begin your day, then you'll love our friends over at the Daily Friend. That's dailyfriend.co.za. They'll help you wrap up your news day live every Mondays to Thursdays at 1:30 p.m. Now, with that being said, hit that like button, please, on your way out, and of course, share the show. Please share the stream. And if you're watching on YouTube in particular, do me a favor and subscribe to the channel. Help me reach my 50,000 subscribers goal by the end of the year. Visit our website at bigdaddyliberty.co.za or .com. With that being said, I'll see you tomorrow, bright and early, for another episode of Vuka Nazo.